Hello, I'm Janine Turner, founder of Constituting America. Welcome to Constituting America's annual academic study entitled History Holds the Key to the Future. Or as Shakespeare said, what's past is prologue. This year's study is entitled The Genius of America, A Journey into Our Republic, a study on Alexis De Tocqueville's Democracy in America. I am convinced that anarchy is not the principal evil that democratic centuries will have to fear, but the least. De Tocqueville. This essay is based on the chapters Equality Naturally Gives Men a Liking for Free Institutions, Volume 2, Part 4, Chapter 1, and pages 639 through 640 of Alexis De Tocqueville's Democracy in America by the University of Chicago Press. Volume 2, Part 4, Chapter 1, Equality Naturally Gives Men the Taste for Free Institutions, by Ben Slomski. Today's chapter begins the last part of Democracy in America. To conclude, de Tocqueville will reflect on the practical effects that the doctrine of equality produces in human government. The chapter begins with a restatement of de Tocqueville's assessment of the promises and dangers of equality. Quote, Equality, which renders men independent of one another, makes them contract the habit and taste of following their will alone in their particular actions. End quote. Under equal conditions, individuals are completely independent and become suspicious of all forms of authority. This fact of independence, quote, suggests to them the idea and love of political freedom, end quote. The natural result of equality is that people come to cherish political freedom on an instinctual level. If a random person from democratic society is placed in a state of nature outside government, he will first think of and favor a government that he can elect and control. De Tocqueville is not entirely sanguine about the desire for political freedom. This love of independence, out of the many political effects of equality, quote, most frightens timid spirits, and one cannot say that they are absolutely wrong to be so, end quote. These timid spirits are not absolutely wrong to be frightened because independence can lead to anarchy, which has worse results in democratic countries. De Tocqueville describes the process by which independence can result in anarchy. Quote, as citizens do not have any influence over one another, it seems that disorder will immediately go to the limit at the instant when the national power keeping them all in place happens to fail, and that as each citizen strays off in his own direction, the social body is going to be reduced to dust all at once. End quote. Two qualifications are needed for the possible situation de Tocqueville lays out. First, what he describes is not a fact, a guaranteed outcome that cannot be avoided, but only seems to be a potential result. Second, de Tocqueville's claim seems only to be that citizens do not have a direct political influence over each other. This says nothing about the social influences citizens can exert over one another. De Tocqueville is indeed less concerned about the tendency of independence to produce anarchy. He declares that, quote, I am convinced that anarchy is not the principal evil that democratic centuries will have to fear, but the least, end quote. There is, of course, something frightening if anarchy, like the French Revolution, is the least of the evils that democratic centuries must fear. Yet it is the least of all the evils because it is the least likely to occur. There are two distinct tendencies caused by equality. The first is the previously identified one that leads people to independence and can produce anarchy. The second, quote, conducts them by a longer, more secret, more surer path toward servitude, end quote. This second tendency is the new democratic version of despotism that develops out of individualism that de Tocqueville has foreshadowed throughout the work and will discuss in this final section. It is not hard for people to recognize the tendency toward anarchy with its extreme conditions and to defeat it. The tendency towards soft despotism, however, is less perceptible and can move people until it's too late, making it more dangerous. Citizens can be swept along by the growth of centralized administration until they will have lost the will to govern themselves. De Tocqueville concludes this chapter with a passage that could serve as an interpretive key to the whole work. Quote, "For me, far from reproaching equality for the intractability it inspires, I praise it principally for that. I admire it as I see it deposit that obscure notion and instinctive penchant for political independence at the bottom of the mind and heart of each man, thus preparing the remedy for the evil to which it gives birth. It is on this side that I cling to it." End quote. To read de Tocqueville as a critic of democracy is to read him wrongly. He is searching for workable solutions to the new problems that will arise in a new type of regime. The love of political freedom, created by equality, imparts a seed in citizens that can be used to resist the soft despotism that threatens their independence. The notion for independence can become obscure over time and buried deeply, yet it remains almost like a raw instinct. This instinct to love free institutions is the best answer to the problem de Tocqueville raises. Equality is a providential fact that cannot be avoided, but produces possible dangers. In order for democracy to work, the tendency toward independence must be cultivated in a healthy manner that forever guards against the tendency toward democratic despotism. Equality gives people the gift of loving political freedom, which can be used to promote the best tendencies of democracy. This essay was written by Benjamin Slomski. Benjamin Slomski is an assistant professor of political science and campus pre-law advisor at Purdue University, Fort Wayne. He earned his PhD from Baylor University, and his teaching and research focus on American political thought, constitutional law, and political institutions. He previously taught at Ashland University, Tarleton State University, and Baylor University.